Welcome back. This is chapter 3rd, the selfish giant, and today I'm going to explain passage number 7. So here we go. Years went by, and the giant grew very old and feeble. Okay, so now the time went by, and the grew, that is, the giant grew very old and feeble, and with the passage of time, the giant grew old and feeble. That is, a lot of time had gone by, and so the giant had become old and also feeble, that is, weak. He could not play about anymore, so he sat in a huge armchair and watched the children at their games and admired his garden. So as he could not move about so easily, and he could not play with them consequently, so he sat in his huge armchair and watched the children at their games. He sat in his huge armchair, big armchair, and just he watched the children playing games in his garden. And as he was watching the children, as he watched the children playing in his garden, at the same time he watched and admired his beautiful garden. I have many beautiful flowers, he said, but the children are the most beautiful flower of all. Okay, now he said, he admired his garden. He used to admire his garden always, and then he said, I have many beautiful flowers. He said that, well, I have got many beautiful flowers, exceptionally good flowers in my garden, but the children are the most beautiful flower of all. But these children are the most beautiful flower and the best flower of them all. One winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing. Now it was winter again, and on such a winter morning, he looked out of his window as he was dressing, as he was wearing his clothes. He looked out of the window. It was winter. He did not hate the winter now, for he knew that it was merely the spring asleep and that the flowers were resting. Okay, so earlier he used to shut his doors and windows, but now he left them open, or he opened them every morning. And as the window was open, he could see the garden, and he saw something there. And what he says here about his philosophy, the philosophy that underwent a change. That is, earlier he hated winter, but now he knew that winter is merely a time in which spring remains asleep. Spring goes on to his sleep. He goes to his sleep, and that the flowers were resting, and that the flowers also go and they also take rest. So winter is nothing but resting season for spring and also for the flowers. Suddenly he rubbed his eyes in wonder and looked and looked. It certainly was a marvelous sight, and suddenly his eyes met something unusual, and so he rubbed his eyes and wondered and looked and looked. He kept on looking at this thing, at the particular thing that amazed him. It certainly was a marvelous sight, and that was the most exceptionally, or say that was the uh, beautiful or the marvelous side, wonderful side. In the farthest corner of the garden was a tree quite covered with lovely white blossoms, and on the same far end of the garden there stood a tree, and that was quite marvelous, that was covered with lovely white blossoms. That tree was covered with lovely white blossom, because in winter you don't find such things, because everything remained covered with snow and frost. So in such season you cannot hope to find blossoms in trees. So that was there, that is, blossom was there. The tree was covered with blossom, lovely white blossom. Its branches were golden and silver, fruit hung down from them, and underneath it stood the little boy he had left. Okay, so then he observed the tree, the color of the tree. On the tree trunk, the branches were all golden in color, and the fruits were silver. That is, they were silvery in color. And to his amazement, to his surprise, underneath it, under the tree, stood the little boy he had loved. And under that tree, the same tree, stood the same little boy that he always wished, that he always craved to, yearned to meet. Downstairs ran the giant in great joy, and out into the garden. And out of joy he ran downstairs. He went downstairs running in great joy, and also he went running out of his gate and into the garden. He hastened across the grass and came near the child, and he rushed across the garden, that is, across the grass that is across the garden, and came near the child. He reached the child. He came near the child, and when he came quite close, his face grew red with anger, and he said, "Who had dared to wound thee?" Okay, so as he reached close to him, his face grew red in anger. That is, out of rage, his face turned red. Why? Because he found something unusual. And he said, "Who had dared to wound thee?" That is, there were some wound marks, injury marks on his body. And so the giant became very furious. He said, "Who had dared to wound thee? Who had got this courage to wound thee, to hurt you?" For on the palms of the child's hands were the prints of 2 nails, and the prints of 2 nails were on the little feet, because he found 2 imprints, 2 marks of nails on his palms, and 2 marks of nails on his little feet. So this is all for now. Thank you.